Are we expecting anybody else from the budget committee?
Doesn't that way.
All right, very good.
Okay, calling the meeting to order at 6:03 PM. Please rise and join me to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian's on Zoom, so we have a budget committee member here.
All right. So my tentative plan was to try to get through a bunch of the smaller accounts tonight. The ones that I'm expecting won't have a ton of discussion, just to get those out of the way. And then the next one, we'll ask that department heads come for some of the bigger discussions on, police, fire, parks and rec, et cetera. And then capital after that. Does that sound good to everybody? And if you wanna, I don't know how you wanna do your votes, but last year we did them sort of at the same time. You took your own vote after we did yours, if you wanna do that.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay. Did you wanna?
Yep,
Intro?
can I do some intro? Thanks for giving up your evening, folks. I know it's a nice day out. I certainly wish I was somewhere else really tomorrow. So I tried to put together as comprehensive a book as I can for you. My disclaimer right up front is our accounting software does not make the charts and graphs and all the things that go along with it, other than the custom budget report, which has numbers. I have to extrapolate all that, take all of that data out of the spreadsheets and put them in the various forms that I put them in. I strive to be 100% accurate, but in some cases there may be some minor mistakes. I put a lot of eyes onto this to make sure, but I was looking at it today and I did find something that's out of whack. The numbers in your budget, in the custom budget report, are the important things to focus on, because they are the accurate things. The charts and graphs give you a pretty good picture of what we're doing, which is what I'm trying to do. But if you find a minor mistake, let me know and I'll correct it, but I try to be as accurate as I can. I kind of put a couple of things in here that hasn't in the past. I put a couple of policies right up front that I think it's important for everybody to bear in mind as we go through this process. One being the general fund balance policy. I put this in here because oftentimes people will hear me talk about the undesignated fund balance that we have. And I've had some questions about what that is and why it's important. We've had other board members who didn't feel that it was important because we have capital reserve funds, we have money, and we don't. They're very two different things. Capital reserves are money for capital projects. They're not intended to be for operating type of expenses, and it's not money that's available to us to pay our bills because it's sitting somewhere else. The undesignated fund balance are funds that we have collected either through underspending our budget or underestimating our revenue that fall into what I refer to as undesignated funds, and here they refer to as unassigned funds. It's basically money that we have to pay our bills. And general accounting, acceptable government general accounting practices say, and our fund balance policy follows this, that we should have 2 months cash sitting in our fund balance. That way, if we get a problem with our cash flow, we still have money, cash available to keep paying our bills. And just bear in mind that we get our money, the bulk of our funds, twice a year, April and October. So we have to get through those whole 6 months period with that money available. Things that affect our fund balance are things like underestimating revenues because of the way we budget. We take this much for taxes, this much for non-property tax revenues. If we underestimate those non-property tax revenues, that money comes out of the fund balance to balance our books. If taxes start getting slowed up, people start slowing up and paying their taxes, that affects our fund balance. So we have to keep an eye on those things. It's important because back in 2019, the town had a fund balance of $131,826. If we got it in the cash crunch, we would not have had the money to pay. We'd had to go out and borrow money to pay our bills. Over the last couple of years, we've managed to kind of reverse that trend. And we just got our 21 audit that had $1,772,000 in it. So pretty close to where we should be. And then once we get to where we should be, anything that's over and above that, we can easily give back to the taxpayers each year. So I bring that up because, everybody, people want to raise the fund balance to offset taxes that year, and that's fine as long as it's healthy. And we're getting there. We did a little bit last year, and we might need to a little bit this year. I don't know. So that's my spiel on the fund balance. The second one I put in here is the capital reserve investment policy. And what I highlight out of this, because HM Payson is taking care of most of what's in here. They manage this quite expertly, I would say. I'm very pleased with how they've done that. The investment committee is really pleased with their performance. But what I do highlight out of this is the withdrawal policy that says, we should not be exceeding 4.5% out of that capital reserve in order to help preserve the principal that started with, which was around $10 million. We're pretty close to that now. The last time we looked, we did a little better last month, so we were approaching 12 million, but we're almost to the point where we've taken enough money out of that reserve fund that we're going to start actually dipping into the principal. The principal is gone, and the only thing we have to spend now is the money that was made out of it. So, again, this is just something for you that I think you should keep in mind as we get talking about capital. I don't expect to get into that conversation tonight. Because if you see the capital plan, even going out 5 years, we exceed that 4.5%. And if we go out 10 years, we still exceed that 4.5%. So there's an issue that I think, we have to think about addressing. Markets have been really good the last few years. So we managed to get away with that. But anyways, so again, this will give you some time between the next budget meeting to think about this and come prepared. A couple of other things that I would like to bring to your attention this year. Some of you may be aware or saw it in the paper or heard that Maine Yankee has applied to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection to be classified as an air pollution control facility. They've taken the stance that those casks that spent nuclear waste is in, even though they're more designed for transport than they are for storage, do in fact keep the radiation from entering into the atmosphere, which they do to a certain extent, of course. What that means for us is if they get this designation, a very large portion of their current taxable property becomes tax exempt. So their value goes from, I don't know, it's currently $33 million or something like that, down to 8 or 9 million. And we lose a substantial chunk of property tax from them. The danger here is with Maine Yankee is that they already have this designation for their sales tax, and the statute for the designation for their property tax is almost verbatim. Take out sales tax, put in property tax and personal property tax, and it's pretty much the same thing. Given the fact that the DEP has already provided them that designation in that one area, I have no reason to think that they're not going to provide it as in the property tax realm as well. Having said that, Maine Yankees had a tax agreement. They went through this 20 years ago. When they did the tax agreement, Maine Yankee did the same thing. They went to the state and the town, they came to a tax agreement. We are in discussions. I can't say anything more than that. So, you know, even if they get this designation, does that mean we lose all of the property taxes out there at this point? Probably not. But it is something that we have to keep in the back of our mind, because this isn't done yet. The other issue we'll have to keep in mind going forward here is the school. The school has not come to the town for 3 or 4 years now and asked for additional funds. Part of that is because the state is now currently funding them at the 55% that they should have been for however many years that law has been in effect. So that's provided them with additional state revenue. They also had sufficient federal revenues in the last few years due to COVID and some of that stuff. That money is all drying up. The COVID money, the federal money is all drying up. Their budget is under the same strains that our budget is under. So I am anticipating a increase from the school. I have figured somewhere around $500,000. Don't know that for sure. I have had a conversation with current superintendent about it, and he feels fairly comfortable that it could be in that range. So you all should be keeping that in mind as we go forward as well. So if you want to go past the introduction a little bit. I did put some information in here about what's driving some of this budget this year. Wages and energy costs being the 2 biggest ones. I included a nice chart for you that I found from the Q Center that shows that wages haven't been keeping up with the private sector. And that's nationally, not just here. We are behind in Wiscasset, have been for a while. Even with these budget increases, the wage increases in this budget, we're still going to be behind. Our police department is still fairly behind. Everybody else, our EMS department is still behind, but on the positive side, people like working here. We have great department heads, we have great employees, people like their jobs here, and some of them are willing to forego going to the sheriff's department for a few dollars an hour more because it's a much better atmosphere here. So, the revenue that I have for you, this just is a representation of where our revenue comes from. We all know most of our revenue comes from property taxes. This just is a breakdown as to where the revenue actually does come from. This is last year, this is actual, not estimated. All of the pie charts that are in here are last year unless noted otherwise. So they represent actual expenditures, not estimated. Where did all the M&Ms come from? I thought we were the only one that had M&Ms, and then I see they're everywhere.
Well, I think I'm supposed to share. Just switching you up.
Oh, it's not gonna work today. So anyways, you know, so the challenge is, how do we change this pie chart and get this property tax revenues requirement down a little bit? And it's a challenge, because a lot of the fees that we can charge, some of them are set by the state. And, you know, excise tax, we have no control over. The state sets the excise tax. We could charge, you know, EMS is another good example. We get into that later, but we can charge whatever we want for an ambulance call. And Medicare says, this is what we're gonna pay you. So, and it's generally about half what it actually costs us to do the service. So there are some constraints on what we can do. I am putting together, and I've got it about half done, a much more comprehensive fee schedule for town. Because right now, our fee schedule is one page with mostly planning board stuff on it, and everything else is scattered all over the place. And I'm making a very comprehensive schedule, and you know, we'll bring it to the board for approval with increases on pretty much fees right across the board. It's just something that we're going to have to do. Some of them haven't changed in years, haven't kept up, and we need to do that, but that's another conversation. The total expenses for last year, this gives you some idea as to where the money went. This does not include the wastewater treatment plant or the cemetery. Those are not paid through taxation. Therefore, I don't include them in here. I'm just trying to show you where your tax dollars go. Wastewater is paid through user fees, and the cemetery is paid out of the cemetery trust fund. So these don't include that. If you look on the next page, it kind of gives you a breakdown as to what those various categories entail. 58% is other expenses, while the school and the county pretty much take up all of that. So that's where more than half of our money goes, just to those two entities. I've shown you the expense trends. I think this is just a little different way to show how expenses are going as opposed to a pie chart. It just gives you a chance to see the upslopes and downslopes. The first one is all of those categories that you see in the previous pie chart. And the second one is just the municipal broken out from the school and the county. And interestingly enough, you can see the last 3 years where the municipal budgets actually exceeded the school budget. That's probably a first. And it's probably unusual, but again, the school has had a lot of outside funds that they didn't come to us for several years for an increase. So I would expect to see that trend probably go back the other way over the course of the next couple of years. The next chart just shows you what the municipal operations look like. Breaking out the personnel in 3 different areas. So the personnel includes wages and it includes benefits. So 34% of our expenditures are wages and benefits. And of that 34%, about 30% of the personnel costs are benefits. Health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, retirement. We pay Social Security, we don't have to, but we do. Sometimes don't. So that's where that representation is. And I don't know if you guys want to go through all of these or not, but I broke down every single expense category in a way to show you where those funds are going. So, personnel, you can see this year's budget is taking a huge jump in personnel costs. Utilities, hydrants, half the cost of our utilities are hydrants. Again, fixed cost, not much we can do about it. Do away with the hydrants, your property insurance will go through the roof. Even if you're downtown, people could get property insurance at that point. So this will kind of come up as we do the capital. We'll talk about some fire equipment that's being requested. Insurance companies use the ISO rating when they determine what property insurance is going to be in town. And part of that is very healthy fire suppression. So if you do away with the hydrants, then you're going to pay, somebody's going to pay for it somewhere else. So it kind of stands out as being a major expense, and it is, but it is a necessary one.
But the Christmas lights aren't costing us anything.
The Christmas lights didn't cost you $300 or something like that.
The appearance of the town committee is pleased.
Services, the biggest thing that comes.
What is the cost for the hydrants?
Yeah, it's broken out in here. Well, utilities, whatever.
$306,000 this year.
I know, but what is it? What are we doing that costs $300,000?
We don't do anything, we're renting them.
Oh,
That's all it is.
For what?
We rent them.
we ran fire.
We don't do anything.
The water district.
The water district maintains them, the water district takes care of them. It's basically just a rental. That's what it amounts to. Except for the hydrants that are out at Mason Station, which we own. They are maintaining them for us, we pay them to do that. But when that project started out there, they put them in themselves, and then when we foreclosed on it, we ended up with that. So that's a small part of it. Okay. Services, you see the transfer station is a big part of the services. Those are the tipping fees that we pay to get rid of our trash. And that expense is going up. It's tied to inflation, so every time inflation goes up, tipping fees go up. Unfortunately, when inflation goes down, tipping fees don't. So that's an issue. But right now, I think the state has 2 landfills that they can use. And that's it. Kirk hasn't taken trash since November, and the municipal, the Hampton facility is still shuttered, waiting for something else to happen, so, they have kind of had everybody over barrel right now. So that's where that goes. Contracted services are our legal services and. Insurance, yep, health insurance is a big one. 440 some thousand dollars last year for health insurance. Somewhere along that line. Supplies, it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Gas, diesel, and so on. Maintenance, I think, is pretty explanatory. Staff expenses, you can see most of that expense, almost 84% is, again, personnel wages. And then debt service, most of that goes to the RSU.
What does RSU mean in this context, Dennis? What is RSU?
That was the school withdrawal bond.
Okay.
Regional school unit.
Yeah, regional school unit, so that was the withdrawal bond that the town took out until
That ends next year,
2026.
26. Let me ask the question, okay, next year. I feel that too.
And then the other expense, which I explained earlier, is mostly county tax and education, so that's where the money goes, guys.
I have a quick question before we
Sure.
get into the details. So on your expense trends chart, the bottom of the pages aren't numbered here, but it's the one that says expense trends at the top. You've got the 2024 proposed 750, 7060, and 6435. Those are the numbers for 2024 proposed. You know, it may just be an anomaly of the numbers. I'm just trying to get things to foot. In your overall budget summary, it sums up to 7.5.
Remember the county,
What am I missing?
the county is not, the county is included in this one,
Yeah,
it's broken out in this one.
it's broken out in this one. So it should be
So if you add the 750 for the county
to.
to the 7,000, to the 7 million, it should bring you closer to what's here.
It's close.
Now, see, there's
I don't
anomaly,
wanna,
there's anomalies here.
Okay.
Because this chart here
Yeah.
does not include the carryovers that we made for last year, and some of them do.
okay,
So I'll try to make
So
that
that's where it
distinction. I'll try to make that distinction as we go on. What we try to show in this budget summary before we get started is what was approved last year
Mhm.
by you guys and the voters.
Yep.
And what we're proposing this year.
Got it.
What we actually have to spend this year is more, because we did the carryovers this year. But what we're showing you is, you know, the carryovers are carrying some expenses that we didn't anticipate when we did this before. And this is what we think we are now, so that's.
I have one other question before we go on. So just overall, one of the things that stuck out to me on the head count, the labor cost increase is that the full-time costs were up about 78% year over year. Now, I know part of that is we need to kind of retain people, and there's a number of things why, but are we shifting generally a lot of people from part-time to full-time? Because that's the only explanation that I could come up with that could make sense for that kind of a jump. The overall budget isn't jumping like that. So is there a reason why we're moving people on to full-time?
Yes, one, because we just can't find the part-time people to do the work. And two, and because we can't find the part-time people to do the work, the remaining part-time people are exceeding their allowable hours under the Affordable Care Act,
Yeah.
where we have to start giving them benefits anyways. And so we have moved but it doesn't make a huge jump in the wages.
It comes along with the other 30% then.
It does, because it's reduced, because we're taking the cost and shifting it from one account to another. Not that it's costing us any more money. So the part-time is gonna come down, but the full-time is gonna go up. We're not creating new positions. We're just elevating them to a new level. So EMS is covered by 2 people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they're all strictly part-time, they're all strictly part-time. We put on 2 new full-time positions last year, but all we did was take 2 of those part-time positions and add benefits to them. It didn't change the labor costs at all. because it's 24 hours, Sundays away from 2 people, and it still is. But it bumped the budget up because we had to stop paying that extra approximately 30% in benefits.
Understood.
Can I go just grab your pen before you do everything if you like me to, but.
So I think what we'll do is, I'll go through category, have Dennis say any comments he wants to, and then any questions from anybody, and then we can, either board can vote if they please, or vote at a different time on that individual.
So just to kind of point of order that, we're voting on what exactly?
To put it on the ballot.
Okay, so last year we did them all in bulk at the end, if I recollect.
That was our recommendation to the voters.
Yeah, so you can do that if you want to. We've done ours a little bit piecemeal before. Like, you don't have to do them
So
all.
we're gonna, the plan is to vote on them and call them complete?
If folks feel that way. There may be ones that folks wanna wait until we've gone through everything, and that's fine, but I figure if there are categories that we feel, no, there's nothing we're gonna change here, might as well vote.
So, and so just to clarify what you said earlier, should the select board do a vote on any one of these? The budget committee would not vote on that motion, but would create our own motion to duplicate that or do it at a later time, correct?
Yeah, you guys are free to do however you wish. If you wanna vote on these things tonight, I think that's totally up to you.
I'm
If you
just
wanna
saying-
have a separate meeting and vote on them all at once, I think that's totally up to you.
Yeah, I guess my bias would be to say, because we're going through it at a first pass, unless it's absolutely super clear, we might wanna drop back and do a review and handle it at that point in time. But if anybody wants to, if they are very clear, we could just rationalize it tonight.
And are there, am I correct that there are 2 votes? One that you're voting to put it on the warrant and the other is your recommendation? Or are they the same?
Well, they're
They're
the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the same.
But that's what the motion says, is to recommend.
Okay,
So that would be, it's basically one vote.
okay,
Yeah,
got it. I don't know why.
I was
done.
confused about that as well.
Through the chair to Dennis, if on the hydrants, the fire hydrants, is that, are those payments to cover bond that they have for the equipment? Or is this for actual maintenance?
That's for just the actual rental. What they do with that after that, I have no idea.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking, is this negotiable?
No. Water rates are set by PUC.
No, water rates are, I understand,
Yeah.
but hydrant rates. The hydrant rates.
Well, I say no. Knowing Chris, the answer was no. But I suppose anything's possible.
Okay, I guess my other point is that they are responsible for the citizens of the town and the taxpayers of the town
Well,
also.
they are, but as a quasi, they're their own.
Oh, I know, I understand that, but if nobody asks the question, we're gonna keep sending them a check every year.
So, I think the thing to do, if people have an issue with at least their water rates, is go to the water company.
Right,
Start going to their trustee meetings and let them know that, because we have no say in that. But as far as the hydrant rentals themselves, we can always ask the question.
well, I'm just addressing the hydrants, that's
Sure.
all.
Yeah.
And I can understand if it's a bond issue and they have to pay off that bond, but if that bond is paid and the depreciation is gone, what are we paying such a large bill for?
Yeah.
I mean, we are all under the same roof when it comes to it,
I will ask the question.
so.
Would that possibly be covering the maintenance of not only the hydrant, but the pipes feeding it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any of it, all of the feeder system. From A to Z, so.
Yeah, but a bond would be a fixed cost, the other would be variable.
Yeah, I
cost.
don't know if they have this outstanding bond. They just bonded, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, right, for some major upgrades.
I thought for something.
I think before I came here, but.
Okay, thank you.
Alright,
Yeah, I may have missed it, but I was just wondering if the proposed budget is accepted as is, what type of increase would it be to the tax?
I can't answer that question right now. I've got to figure out what Maine Yankee's got to do. We have to do some work on our valuations. Before the final vote on that, I always try to get some estimate, but as it stands right now, at 457,000, that would be about a $1 increase in the mill rate. Before any increase in the school budget.
In regards to Maine Yankee, a couple of questions. Do you anticipate that whatever might happen will happen soon?
As far as the state DEP, it has to happen before April 1st.
Okay, okay, so that takes care of my second question, which was what if we vote on everything and then it happens later? Okay, so that's not an issue. The other thing, my other question is, what do they pay us now in taxes?
About $770,000 a year. So it's about roughly $550 in taxes, and then the way that the formula works, because there's a cap on their taxes, if there's a gap because of the mill rate and the taxes, then they pay an impact fee to make up for that. So the impact fee this year was somewhere around $150,000, right off the top of my head.
Let's go. Administration. I said, if you want to introduce any of these or make any comments, and then we'll do questions.
You know, the administration budget, you can see mostly zeros except for wages. You know, I got a raise this year. And that's reflected in this, and the wages for the full-time for the administrative assistant are not an increase of wages, it's just an increase in hours. When Kathy was doing that job, she had 5 hours that was charged to general assistants because she's a general assistance administrator. I moved her into a finance position and hired a new administrative assistant. So Kathy took those 5 hours with her to finance. So the increase here is being offset in the finance budget.
Any questions? I think it probably does make sense unless it's something maybe like county tax or something, we might as well not vote tonight.
We can't, doesn't matter when you vote on county tax, you're gonna pay it anyway, so it doesn't go on the warrant, so. And I will, that was what I meant to say too. The county tax is just an estimate. I have not gotten a final number from them yet, so I think it's reasonably close. But hopefully they'll have that in the next, before our next budget meeting.
All right, any more questions on that? I'm gonna skip airport for tonight, animal control.
Is it your intention to vote on any of these tonight?
I guess it probably doesn't make sense.
Okay.
That's all right, folks. We'll do them in bulk after.
Animal control about the same as it was last year. You know, it's seen an increase in the last couple of years because they have the same wage pressures that we have. And yes, I will talk to the animal shelter about that deal on.
Yeah. Questions on animal control? Seeing none, moving on to assessing.
Assessing, a big part of assessing is Trio, which is our computer software that we basically run the town with. We haven't gotten a bill from them for next year yet, so we're anticipating a 10% increase. So anyway, you see Trio, we've kind of anticipated a 10% increase on that. So that's where the increase in this budget is. Hopefully it will be a little bit less than that. It generally is, but.
Questions? Okay, boards and committees.
Yes, there is a mistake in that chart. I didn't notice it until today, and there is a mistake there. The chart for the 23 budget it should have been 4209, so. This is, so union contracts have not yet been signed, the union has not voted on their proposed contract, it should next week, I think. So the wages that are in here are based on what I think is gonna happen right now. So those contracts cover public works, transfer station, wastewater, all of the staff out front here, as well as the police administrative assistant. And so I base those increases on that. Any non-union person, we typically give them the same increase that the union gets. So that's where some of these, like boards and committees, when you see these 12% increases in wages, that's where that's coming from. Because we're passing along the same increase throughout. It's not huge amounts of money because we just don't get paid all that much in the year.
Any questions on boards and committees? Great. More celebrations.
Celebrations is down just a little bit this year because last year we had the budget for a 50% deposit in the fireworks display, which we haven't had to do before. But now we're caught up with that, so that's why that's down a little bit. Fireworks is up. They charge us a little bit more this year. I talked them out of some of it, so, but I can't talk them out of it the next year.
Why is Christmas up?
Because we spent $3,200 this year out of the 35 that we budgeted. So it's just a little close. Last year, we actually we overspent the Christmas line, so.
Any questions? All right, moving over to cemeteries.
Again, cemetery doesn't come out of taxation. It shows a decrease because we had the money for the ancient cemetery fence in the budget last year, and that's already been taken care of. I did hold 20,000 in there. Ted has a mausoleum that in one of the cemeteries that needs to be repaired. Excuse me, we have a bunch of stones that we really need to get repaired, so.
Would those both be in the ancient cemetery?
They're in all cemeteries.
Um,
And there are no, especially the ancient cemetery, there's no known heirs when the town's responsible for those, so.
right,
I think it's a little, the money's a little high, but again, it doesn't come from taxation, and the money that doesn't get spent out of this goes back into the cemetery trust anyways.
is that the
And it's-
contracted line?
Yes. Yeah. And it makes more money than we spend every year, so.
Question.
Tom,
It's not on this sheet, the summary sheet at the beginning.
Right.
Why is that?
Because it doesn't come from taxation.
Okay, so it's not missing or it's not the debt,
So
okay,
I only, on those charts, I'm only showing you where your tax eligible are.
okay,
Like this and wastewater is not part of that.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
court,
Again, the clerk's budget is, it's a union, this is what we think is gonna happen. Of course, that drives Medicare and retirement costs up. We try to find places in other areas to make up for this, and I can't, once we agree to the contract, I can get into more of those details on what we got for concessions to help some kind of offset some of this, and there is some in there.
why is the overtime all of a sudden?
Because she's got an extra primary that she has to do this year.
Any questions? Code enforcement?
So on the ones that had revenue, I did try to break them down for you to show how the revenue affects overall and what the actual cost of the town is. So from several years, the code enforcement office really hasn't cost us anything. It's all been paid through fees. I'm conservative with the fees because I keep thinking that this building boom is going to shut us down. And we're not going to have all these fees, but it continues to go and be strong. So if I'm wrong again, we'll have a great revenue. I did check with Bruce on some stats that you might be interested in. He issued 22 new home permits last year and 102 building permits overall for an estimated value of $11.5 million. So that's $11.5 million we picked up to help out towards taxation, which is a good thing. So, again, his budget's mostly all just his wage and salary.
Any questions on code enforcement? Community organizations, this maybe one we need to come back to.
I think it probably.
Okay,
I mean, you guys can do, so community organizations, on the first page, I showed you the organizations that the town has contributed to for many years. On the next pie chart, I showed you that last year there were other organizations that were approved, and that's where they came from. We did institute the policy this year that any nonprofit organization that came and wanted money from the town, they actually had to supply us with some information this time. And that included what is the benefit to Wiscasset residents of us giving you this money? Because I think that's important for everybody to know. We also required them to show us proof of their nonprofit status, and provide us with their last year's nonprofit tax return, as well as their financial data. You do not have all of that because the file is this thick. If you want to come in and review it, you're more than welcome to. Really exciting stuff. But the only ones that I haven't heard from this year so far is Lifelight and Spectrum Generations. They have not submitted anything as of yet. I've locked them in there in case they decide to, but at some point, I think we need to say, okay, you didn't get your request in on time, therefore, sorry, you're not going to be there. And I think you guys, I don't have them, but I think I included in your packets at least the cover letter from each one of these organizations that provide services. And the one that didn't have the information on it was Waldo Cap, as to how many transportation services they provide.
Yeah, that was visual.
That's in here.
Yeah, but I don't think to give you the numbers. Because it's two-sided. Hold on.
Yeah, it's all blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's gonna go in there.
Yeah, we don't have it.
So Waldo Community Action Partners, they have 51 clients in Wiscasset. They provided the transportation services of 69,454 miles. And the value of those services were $168,983. And they're asking us to contribute $4,225 of that.
Did we get anything from the food pantry?
No.
Okay, so we haven't heard from them either?
No.
Questions at this point? Sounds like we need to wait.
The food pantry, who is that?
Let's St. Philip.
It is St. Philip.
Yeah.
I thought it probably was.
And I talked to him today too, didn't even think to ask.
LCT has a letter in here, but
LCT put a letter in here, we didn't fund them last year, so I didn't include it in the budget. That's a discussion for you guys to have. If you had included them last year, I would have included them this year, but they did put in the request, and therefore I forwarded it to you for consideration.
Are there any others that have asked for funding that? That's it.
LCTV, did they have a requested amount?
I believe it was 15,500.
I'm sorry.
It's in there, I think.
There are letters in.
You should have a letter in there from,
After
it's the
Waldo?
last one in that file.
I thought I just looked at all of them. Up to,
So, point of order again, last year we voted on these individually, I believe.
I think that's up to the.
yes, we did.
Can we do that again? Okay. All right.
Any other questions for the moment? Contingency.
Well, so far, we haven't really spent any contingency, but I think we have something coming up that I'm gonna have to rate it, so that's why I'm keeping it where it is. We seem to have something that comes up that we were 1 year that didn't spend it, but
Questions? Contractual?
This is kind of one of those unknowns a little bit, because I put a fair amount of money into the Maine Yankee, only because we don't know where this process is going to go. If they get this designation, if we want to fight it, it's going to cost us money, and attorneys and time. And attorneys are helping us negotiate whatever tax deal we can try to get with them. I'm pretty confident that we will not spend all of this. But I'd rather have it and then not spend it than have to go back to the voters at some point and say we need more money. And maybe we can get this settled before we get done with this budget process, and we can make that adjustment beforehand, before we finalize this. So a couple of new accounts that we added in here was Zoom Access. That's been paid out of the administration line, but all the boards and committees are using it. So we moved it over here, as well as the postage meter, which everybody uses. So instead of my budget taking a hit on that, we moved that over here as well. We had to increase the internet security line. I had an audit done of our internet security several months ago. No, it was not widely publicized because it is security. And we did find some issues within our security, so we had to change the security company that we were with to somebody a little more reputable. And MMA was pretty adamant that we do that, because we do carry cybersecurity insurance through MMA. And so that was one of the things that came out of that audit, amongst some other stuff. So that's why that lines up a little bit.
What is the Mason Station line?
Mason Station, last year we spent that money on the cleanup, the balance of the cleanup that was a little bit short on the grant. That's where that money comes from. We do have some maintenance things that we need to do out there as a result of that. We have to maintain the silt fence that's out there, because that's not grassed in and hasn't grown up yet. So we're gonna have some costs associated with keeping that up there. As well as maybe some DEP issues with them that we may need some attorneys on. So I put a little bit more money into that, just as a hedge.
Is that cleanup project substantially done? I mean, there was a YouTube video on that website, I might put the wrong timing on it, but.
Yes, but the only thing that isn't done out of it is loaming and seeding it. And we intentionally didn't do that because we didn't know at the time. There was talk that we might just sell off that one piece of land. And I didn't see any point in dumping thousands into loam and seed and then have somebody come along and dig it all up. But we do have to maintain those silt fences down there, because DEP is pretty adamant that we do that. But yes, that project is done. We applied for another one now to clean up another part of that area.
But that was the thing I think I saw.
Yes.
So that'll all be grant funded.
Yes, actually, this is another one of those great deals where it's 100% funded, because of all the money the federal government's throwing around.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Like I said, this is just an estimate. So
Debt service,
that service is just the RSU bonds since last year.
we're down to elections.
Excuse me, elections, about the same. These are the election workers and minimum wage workers. Minimum wage went up 8% this year. So we just had to go up to match that. So that's why the labor line is up just a little bit.
Questions on elections?
And as I just mentioned a little bit ago, Linda did inform me that we have a presidential primary that will have to do this year, in addition to the town meeting and regular, I know, right?
All right, let's skip EMS for tonight, finance.
Finance essentially really gonna change the finance.
Any questions here? Okay, skipping over fire, general assistance.
We have that same. We've been very fortunate. A lot of towns around us have really taken part on general assistance this year. We've been quite lucky. We haven't seen that as of yet.
Is the part-time one different because of Kathy and Robin?
Yes.
Okay,
Bear in mind that the state reimburses us 70% of this, so.
municipal building.
Municipal building, couple of things, because electricity and heating prices have gone through the roof. So you can see we budgeted 20,000 for oil last year, and we've already spent 15, and we still have a ways to go. So that may be a bit of a problem. Also about that, this is going to be in my manager's report for Tuesday. We had a meeting between the school and Ted and myself with an outfit the other day called Johnson Controls. Big energy outfit, big company. They're going to come in and they're going to do a soup to nuts audit of every building that we own. To try to find areas where we can improve our infrastructure and save some money on energy. We've been looking for somebody to come in and redo this heating system in this building for 2 years. And haven't been able to find anybody, basically because it's either a job you don't want to do or they're just too busy and can't do it. They're gonna evaluate everything, lighting, heating, air conditioning, windows, exterior, walls, roofs, light. They would do the street lights, they will do broadband. And it's not going, the preliminary assessment is not going to cost us a thing. It doesn't obligate us to anything, it doesn't cost us anything. What they hope will happen is that when they're all done, we will take some of their recommendations and want to do them, and they can win the bid to be able to actually do the work after the fact. They're doing this in Lewiston right now for the city, and it's a pretty big project. They've done this in several other areas. They will basically guarantee us that whatever they recommend, whether it's they're recommending biomass right now in some of their public buildings instead of oil. Whatever the cost of the upgrades will be saved in energy savings, and there will be no cost to the taxpayer at all. And they guarantee that. And if it doesn't work out that way, then they write us a check.
So are they gonna evaluate the school also?
Everything, every building we own.
I was wondering about the school. That was upgraded by Honeywell, if I recall.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, a few years ago, and there was supposed to be a guarantee of savings. I don't know if anybody's looking at that.
I don't know. I do not involve myself in school
I'll
stuff.
ask Jason.
I got just enough to do here, so I just, but what I am trying to work with the school in whatever areas that we can, to try to find some efficiencies, and this was one of them. They'll look at solar projects. If we could put in a solar project in this town, and it will run, and will provide the electricity for the entire town, for, the municipal and the school, and save us money, then, that may be something that we can look at. We've got the old landfill out there, and that's, that the state loves to see solar projects on the old landfills, it's everybody's problem. The problem out there is the interconnection, but, we have property at Nixon Station, is that something we should do? They're gonna tell us that. So I'm kind of excited about it anyways. It will be, will be in my manager's report for the next budget meeting.
I'm just curious what the increase is for the veteran memorial.
It needs work. The bricks out in the front, the pathway out front, the bricks are all breaking up, and it looks terrible, and it's very disrespectful, and very much needs to be fixed. And there's actually names on the back now, so we need to bring the walkway around the back. For those people back there, so I'm not even sure that's enough to cover it, but Ted's giving me, some estimates on it.
Any other questions for municipal building? Municipal insurance,
Because we have such great employees and they're so safety conscious, this is, pleased to see that this is one budget that's actually gone down. And that is, workers' comp has dropped because of our experience rating. Everybody knock on wood, please. And we do get a dividend back from them every year, because of our safety rating, so it's great.
any questions? Overlay abatement,
Yeah, that'll be second tax time, so.
skipping parks and rec,
You want one whole meeting for that.
planning. Let's start this one.
Well, at least this will give you something to think about between now and your next meeting. The town has gone back and forth on wanting a planner, needing a planner, or something to help promote the town and bring in businesses and broaden our tax base. And we really do need to broaden our tax base. And take some of the burden off of the homeowner in this town. And so, Bill has mentioned this to me many times, and we've had some conversations. They don't want a planner, maybe they'll support an economic development person. I tried to do this as a shared position with Newcastle, Damascotta, and Booth Bay Harbor. Hired a shared economic developer, and it lasted about a month, and Booth Bay Harbor decided they wanted out. I don't know why. And Newcastle scooped right in and picked it up. So that left us on our own. I think this is something that you guys just really should think about and discuss. I'm not sure that I envision this position taking over the full planning position, because I see them as being a little bit different. That's why I've left money in here for the contracting planner with Emily to continue work with the planning board and Bruce, but this position will be to go out and try to attract some businesses in here. Help with getting something done out at Mason Station. Maybe looking at some of the land that we own to see what can we do to bring that in. What businesses do we have that we can try to get to expand here? Can Rhinell expand and do something? I think we talked about putting this in last year's budget and then ended up pulling it out. But I'm bringing it back in kind of a different fashion this year. So for you to think about. The salary is pretty much what I could find. MMA puts out a salary survey every year. It's a great source of information for me on salaries. And I kind of picked up kind of middle of the road salary for this for town this size and the workload that I would envision for this. And it is in line with what Damascotta is paying their full-time economic director over there. And we don't want to pull business away from us. With Damascotta. We're gonna make a bet with Andy about this.
Can I speak first?
Yeah.
And, where I was for quite a few years as chairman of the planning commission, and we had an economic development department. And the main job was working with developers. Developers, be someone in Portland, Boston, Chicago, anywhere. These people have been around for a while, have got a lot of contacts, and they bring people in. They don't put an ad in the paper and sit around waiting for the phone to ring. They should be active in getting developers in and showing them the land that principally what we own. We've got plenty of land that we can do, but there's a lot of land in town that they could develop into something. It's well worth the money.
And I simply just don't have the time to devote to this the way it should be, the way it should be done to do it properly.
And we definitely need more taxpayers.
And I will tell you that, the TIF does generate money for economic development. I don't know what that figure is yet. We're trying to figure that out. So some of this will be able to, some, if not all of this will be able to be offset with what we have in the TIF fund. But I'll try to get that information to you when you get into these individual budgets for, nuts and bolts discussion. But this is it at least can partially be offset by that.
In the past, that was $9,000.
Yeah, no, I think there's quite a bit more in there now. There's quite a bit more than that in there now. We're trying to determine that with the auditor as to what exactly is there. And that tip money it can only be spent on economic development. So right now it's just sitting there doing nothing. So we might as well use it.
Kim, did you?
I'm just wondering if anyone in town has done even some preliminary thinking about what an economic developer would be going after? I mean, are they gonna come?
Oh, any of it, whatever it is.
So the town doesn't have any
If the town-
general thinking about what they would like to attract?
If the town would finish its comprehensive plan,
I'm working,
we could probably, yes, figure that out.
okay, I mean, I'm sure that it would be very convenient if they decided we could become the nuclear waste facility for the rest of the country, but I don't think that that's what we want.
Trust me, that nuclear waste is gonna be there, so.
No, I know it's going to be there, but we don't want everyone else's
Yeah,
as well.
everybody else is gonna be stuck with it too, because I just don't see anything going anywhere, but anyways. No, I mean, that's part of what your comprehensive plan is, this is what we want, this is what we need to move to, we just need to get it done.
Sorry about
About,
that.
about this position, does that come with like a performance measure of economic development brought in? Like, would that be?
It certainly could, I mean, we could set goals for it to say, this is what we would like to see you accomplish in this first year.
Is that how
You mean goals or talking about their references?
Yeah, like what do we require of them? Like, not just to go out and ask a bunch of corporations to come here, but do we require them to actually bring in new economic development? Not just pursue it, but is that part of their job requirement?
I'm not
Dennis
sure.
has got a very comprehensive job description.
So there is a job description that is part of that, and the next page is the record. I mean, if the decision is that you want to set measurable goals, and you should set measurable goals for me to achieve every year. I think that's, yes, that's a reasonable thing.
I was just wondering, like, with your experience with it, if it was the kind of thing that people come in and you can expect a certain amount of economic development just to come with the person in the job because they bring the contacts.
Depends on who you hire. If you hire someone that's fairly new, that's not gonna happen. You get someone that's got a few years under their belt, they should have contacts all over. Excuse me, like losing my voice, but they should have contacts in the business. That's something in the interview process you wanna look for.
I think that might have been one of the problems in the past, in the town size, when we went to the ballot box to vote on this. And that's why it got shot down. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding around town as to exactly what was expected of this person. And the image, I think, that circulated around town was, there's another tag of an employee in office, what are they really gonna do? And I think if it was this time, if it should go through, there should be a comprehensive plan put forward to market that position, so that everybody in town knows that they're gonna have an objective that they have to do, meet on an annual basis. And if they don't do it, we'll find somebody else to do it, just like any other business. That's a good point.
I think very reasonable.
I was gonna ask all of those questions. What sticks out to me about this, Dennis, to be honest with you, I hesitate to say it, I question whether that's enough money.
Yeah.
For the caliber of person that we're all just trying to describe, somebody with a deep Rolodex that can bring people in.
I know you said you took a mid-range.
Okay, and
That's what he
maybe you've done that research, it's just, if we're going to under club on this, I wouldn't do it at all. I mean, this is worth discussing, but I think it's critically important to have a good job description, it's critically important to have a good set of targets, but it's also important to get somebody that can actually do it. And I would just wonder at that level, assume that salary, That's salary, whether or not you could get somebody.
I put this in here as to, for a discussion, to spark this discussion, if there was, and then if there was absolutely no interest in doing this, then fine. I haven't wasted a lot of time on it. But if y'all are serious about moving this forward, then yes, we can certainly look at those things. If we don't feel like it's enough money, we can look and see if we can put more money into it. I think we probably ought to find out what's in the TIF and how much we can actually afford. But, the purpose of having this here today was to give you the next 2 weeks to run this through your head to figure out, where do we want to go with this? And how can we, make it the best way?
How do you
best thing
want,
that we can do.
and you want to hear from us individually, if this is something we're prioritizing, what?
No, we're gonna talk about it more.
So that we can get from you.
You guys can go and individually think about this and whether, offer suggestions, however you want to bring it, and then come back and with all your suggestions and say, I think this is what it should look like, and this is what it should look like, and then we'll hone it down, and then we'll get it ready for, sell to the voters.
The contracted figure is what we're currently utilizing an individual for.
Lincoln County Regional Planning.
Okay,
So
so,
their budget is currently 50,000, so we dropped that in half.
okay, so if some of that 25,000 or all of it was to actually go to somebody that would bring in a director of that, would we necessarily need to pay the Lincoln County?
They do other things for us, a lot of grant writing things for us, and I don't want this individual to get too overloaded and be bogged down with doing a lot of the planning board stuff that Emily is doing, which does take quite a bit of time, and that's taking them, getting some of the stuff with the planning board done, that's taking away from going out there and working on getting these businesses to that.
I'm just wondering if we can camouflage that a little bit or put it in another line somewhere, so it doesn't really go towards this. If you look at it and you're thinking that's near salary or someone doing that same job, if we put it as find another line item for it, so that there's another name.
Contractual?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you think for a town this size though, that it's gonna be a full-time 40 hours a week? Or should it be a shared position, like you mentioned?
We had a planner. And the poor guy spent most of his time at me just going to meetings and trying to deal with those sorts
Doing
of
someone
things.
else's work.
Yeah, he never got an opportunity to do what we would like to have seen him do.
And I think part of that is because even though they kind of meld together, they really are two separate things. A planner and an economic developer are not necessarily compatible positions to be able to do both, and that is true. When Ben was here, he spent all of, he just didn't get a chance. If I had my brothers, could we share it with somebody? Yes.
But just what she said, it sounds like that they were bogged down by the planning portion, not the development portion, so.
Well, they weren't even involved in the planning, they were doing other things that they were giving work to someone else should have done.
Yeah, but again, this was put in here to spark these very discussions. And you guys can tell me what you want to do with it, and
I'll call the town where it was and ask what their salary range is and what you get for it.
again, this is around what Dan Scott is paying theirs currently.
How long have they had that?
It's only been a few months, so I
Okay,
can't
so
really
you
call it
can't
up.
really look
Yeah.
and say, okay, they're bringing in the results that they
Yeah,
hoped
it's
for.
a little too soon to see it, the results of that.
And we can look more into it, but I've never seen or heard of a planner having you have to have so many businesses brought in by a certain, it's
I
not
would
like that.
imagine in year one, that would be a.
Yeah. Particularly when you're not hiring $150,000 person, But I would like to see us, if we're gonna do it, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think we can find plenty for them to do, but we can come back to that. And just, as a side note, you'll hear more updates about comprehensive plan very soon, but, I spoke with Emily over at Lincoln County and we feel like it's doable to finish by the end of the calendar year, so. Anyway, Any other questions at this point on planning and development? Skipping police, public utilities.
I did, we are gonna convert the streetlights over to LEDs. That alone is gonna save a considerable amount of money, and I know that they've identified a number of streetlights that we don't need, which will also save us money. But the issue with that is I just don't know when this is gonna happen yet, because we don't have a schedule. So I capped the streetlight budget up a little bit to compensate from that, even though I think, certainly by the end of the year, this should be done. And if I can get a schedule from them between now and the time that we finish this up, I might be able to update that, and we might be able to drop this budget back a little bit, but we left it in there just to be safe.
Any questions?
I plan on following up with them because they said they were gonna get back to us. They supposedly have the audit done. And then we have to decide on which ones to get rid of.
CLC. I can tell just by saying. Yeah, CMP actually reached out to me yesterday, because Affinity had reached out to them about the purchase and sales agreement for all of the fixtures and all of that stuff, so I know they're moving ahead on it.
Skipping public works, anything on revenues for the moment?
Looking at our revenues this year, I mean, last year we were over revenue. We're running ahead of projections again this year, and you can see that as of the 10th. We've collected almost all the state revenue already that we anticipated. State revenue sharing figures should come out mid-March, so I should be able to firm that up a little bit once I see them. Airport revenue, of course, looks like it's down, but it really isn't because we don't account for the fuel sales until the end of the year. So the reality is he's actually running ahead of his revenue estimates. So, and I checked revenues again today, and we're still in pretty decent shape. So it's not as high as it would be because I did not include Maine Yankees impact fee in here. Because I just didn't know whether or not we were gonna have one, so. And I'm not sure if we hit a new tax agreement, if there'll actually be an impact fee in there this year, if it'll just be straight out property tax. But again, hopefully before we get done with this process, we'll have a better handle on where they're at with that, so.
Any questions? Okay, Selectmen?
I know you guys didn't want it last year, but I did put it in again this year. Everybody else is getting more money. Well, you know what? Gas costs a lot more. It costing you guys more money to do this. I mean, certainly this is your decision, not mine, but it's not that much more money, so.
Why is the advertising way up?
Because some of the things that advertise, like your junkyard permits or your liquor licenses are coming out of my budget. And they're your meetings, not mine. So I move the advertising out of mine into yours.
Oh, man.
So it's just a shift. It's not, well, as you go through these budgets, you find these little things that say, why am I paying for the postage meter that everybody here uses? Why isn't that being just off on its own? Or in some cases, they distribute them through all the various budgets, but then that gets to be a whole lot of work too. Oh, you use it 10%, you use it 12%. It's not. And then you find some of these accounting errors that go through. Anyways, this was one of those that we looked at and said, why am I paying for liquor licenses for the select board?
Is dues and fees enough from MMA?
Yeah, MMA, yeah. Actually, I probably can adjust that down a little bit because they didn't go as high this year as I thought they were going to, so I might be able to back $500 onto that.
Okay, senior center?
Yeah, they're doing better than they thought money wise. Again, this is just an increase in wages. We only budgeted 5,000 in wages this year. Looks like they're actually gonna spend more than that, so that's why I upped that a little bit. The increased hours as well as the increased hourly rate, so.
Any questions?
So does the income from the senior membership go into this?
Yep.
Because I noticed it was on the Parks and Recreation. I should say it was in the email that Kim sent out. The membership.
The memberships should be going into the senior center. That's where I pulled that information right from the accounting system, so. I don't think all revenue from senior center should go to the senior center.
Because it's always been a separate account, which I've never fully understood why, but.
Well, I guess I asked the question and I've never gotten a straight answer as to why they don't just come to the town like any other community organization does and make their requests through community organizations. They are a 501c3.
They are, okay.
Oh. I didn't know.
But the meals and the cost of the meals are in this budget.
The meals and the cost
They
of
come
meals
to the town.
are coming through the town. So I guess, and the answer that I guess I seem to get is, well, we've always done it that way. And that's an answer that just drives me nuts. So, but I think in the past, it has been suggested, and members of the senior center just really didn't want to do it that way. It came to a select board meeting. Didn't really want, so, I mean, it's a small amount of money. I'm just not sure that it's worth getting into.
You'll get a 2-hour lecture on how that was formed, and how it got over there, blah, blah, blah.
So, excuse me, what is the personnel line?
That's the cook for the meals that they have.
So we supply the cook and the.
To cook and someone that cleans up before and after. Someone that works for the rec center. They set up the tables and they clean the floors and stuff like that. Plus the cook.
What costs does the 501c3 organization actually supply?
Whatever they do for games and cribbage and
So activities.
it's mostly coming from the town.
I see.
Yeah, well, the meal sides are that, the expense for that stuff can't be all that much money.
No, can't be.
There is a membership of $25.
It's a membership of $25.
Yeah.
And all of that comes to the town?
Yeah, we get the membership fees out of that, as well as the money from the meals.
Yeah, the meals aren't free.
So we pay for the meals, but they pay to come and eat.
Yeah, it's partially different.
Yeah, so it is, you see, I put it in your chart where it's partially offset by that.
They used to have a scholarship fund and that died out.
Was that?
They used to have a scholarship fund and that died out. There's some money they keep for themselves. There's some 50/50 and some other small fees. I think they so they get some money from the card games and stuff like that. That goes into their own bank account.
They do their own lots of food out of that.
Right,
Moving right along.
the last one for tonight, shellfish.
Not much of a change in there, just the increase in wages. So,
Any questions? Okay, so next time, everybody could come prepared to discuss the ones we've not done, and we'll ask the department heads to all be here as well to answer questions. And we'll get through as many as we can, and just keep going, and then go into capital.
And that's March 8th.
Yes. Any questions?
Thank you. I just think this was really well put together, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you,
Very
Dennis.
nice job.
I don't
Thank
want to
you.
say nice things about you in a year in a row. This is very well done and really helpful to get this in advance.
Quick question on the capital expenditure. one that I saw that stuck out was the fire. And that's obviously approximately 12%. You had mentioned in there that's possibly a lease option. So would that be a better way to fund it?
It might be. You know, interest rates are not nearly as favorable as they were a couple of years ago. And the investment fund is not doing as well as it was a couple of years ago. So where's the trade-off there? You know, we borrowed money last year because interest rates were super cheap and the investment fund was doing really well, so it made sense to leave it alone. This year, it's not looking that way. In fact, we had an investment meeting last December. It was last month to go over the year end. And Dan Lay, the investment advisor, who again, I think has just done an outstanding job with this. His advice this year is if you need the money, just take it, you're not borrowing money. But that's a decision you guys will have to make as we move forward on this, even if you want to go with it. You know, maybe you just don't want to buy a fire truck this year.
I'm just thinking of car leases and stuff like that. There's all kinds of deals you could really.
A little less so on something like this,
Yeah,
but they are there, and the option is there. I think I hope I explained that in there, that we had that option. And there's options to put some things off, there's options to, but, you know, my favorite thing is kicking the can down the road. I hate doing it. It just costs us more in the long run than in the end to keep putting things off. And so, but again, it's not my decision. I just give you information, you guys take.
Other problem with fire trucks is it takes years now to get them. Quite expensive, right?
To get.
So I don't know, to get them now, it's extra.
Oh, yeah, we haven't gotten a schedule yet on the one that we bought last year. The ambulance that we bought last year is still not in production yet. And that was one of the reasons why we did it last year, because we knew it was gonna take a whole long time to get it done. And that way we at least got it in the queue, so.
Right. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, third.